You said, do Democrats understand what's happening to them? And let's talk about that and your views of what it means for the midterm. Your reference there, correct me if I'm wrong, was to the increasing popularity of the Democratic Socialists, and they're winning. They're winning. And let's talk about why, and let's talk about whether you see this as good, bad, or manageable somehow for the Democrats.
Well, I mean, first of all, one of the points that I want to make is, a lot of this is about we need more energy, we need
Yep.
more fight. We want people who are, younger, more dynamic, who are willing to fight Donald Trump. Well, unfortunately, some of the people who have been defeated have been among the leading fighters against Donald Trump, including Dan Goldman in New York, who was one of the lead counsels in Donald Trump's first impeachment. But here's the key thing. If you want to fight Donald Trump, if you want to stop Donald Trump, you have to beat Donald Trump. In order to do that, you must win elections. You must win elections in congressional seats that are not 6+60 Democrat. You need to win the swing seats. In order to stop Donald Trump, you need to win control of the U.S. Senate. Otherwise, he will get more Supreme Court nominees. So the question is, you say the DSA is winning. They're winning primaries. They're defeating other Democrats. In fact, the weird thing is they are defeating generally very progressive Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
So the big question is, does this make it more likely or less likely that the Democrats will be able to win elections in November to stop Donald Trump? And I am quite skeptical about this because the Democratic Socialists of America should not be confused with Nordic Democratic Socialists. These are not the socialists you think they are. In my newsletter today, I point out, and I don't know, this has not gotten a lot of attention. We know that the DSA folks are united in their opposition to Israel and their support for Palestinian rights. That is well known. But the DSA has also been against any U.S. military aid for Ukraine. Their position papers sometimes mimic the Kremlin talking points. They have called for the United States to get out of NATO. They oppose military aid both to Ukraine and to Taiwan. There's a horseshoe thing here, horseshoe politics, where many of the things that the DSA candidates are saying do mimic things on the right. Now, I understand that people are frustrated with the Democratic establishment. I understand that. I understand that people want fighters. The question is whether or not this is going to actually accomplish what I think most Democrats want, or whether you're scratching the ideological id. And the point that I made, which, by the way, is very, very unpopular, be very unpopular with your audience, is that when I said, do Democrats understand what's going on? The DSA folks understand what they're doing. They are exercising a hostile takeover of the Democratic Party. This is not an energizing of the liberal Democratic. These are folks who are out there, many of them on the fringe. And trust me, they are handing Donald Trump and the Republicans the issue that they wanted for the midterm elections. Long answer, so
yeah.
Get into
no, I know people are going to hear this and they're going to be upset. But I mean, I'm not the strategist. You're the guy who's had decades of experience watching this. And I look, I've said this on the air many times. I will vote for anyone reasonable who can defeat MAGA. Period. End of discussion. And so if this is going to get in the way, and the Democrats start eating themselves, and we can't defeat MAGA, we need to pay attention to this. And yes, I guess the question is, can the party and the powers that be in the party get their hands around this issue? You just cited the factors driving this. They want more youth. Amen to that. They want and the energy that comes with that. There is a distinct anti-Israel bent to some of this, and they've got to figure that out. The question is, can the party do that? And can the party put forth candidates who may not be the extreme socialists that hand Trump an issue and still address the factors that are driving people?
Well, I would hope so. I would hope so. And of course, the problem with the question is, what is the party? And does the party have any clout whatsoever? And I think we're basically saying,
No,
these parties,
no,
and there is no Republican Party. The Republican Party is, basically now become a Trumpian cult. The Democratic Party establishment seems to be, rather feckless.
right.
But I have to say that I'm suffering from a little bit of PTSD because, many of the arguments in favor of, going with the extreme or ignoring them because they are the fighters is very similar to what many of us heard from the MAGA folks back in 2016, and that the extremism of the other side then becomes a justification for this. Look, I think that all of the stars have been aligned for Democrats to do very, very well in the midterm election. All they have to do is basically be relatively normal. Now, one of the dangers, and again, going back to 2016, beginning to describe anyone who is not part of this movement as the establishment. The establishment is completely powerless in the Democratic Party. The targets right now are centrist, center left, sometimes very, very progressive members of Congress who are being taken out by members of the DSA who have their own agenda. And two people are saying, well, these two candidates, the one in Colorado and in New York, they've said these, extreme things, that America deserved 9/11. Ignore those things. That really doesn't count. What you need to understand is the skill with which Republicans have weaponized those extreme things. Donald Trump, I mean, okay, Donald Trump's full of shit. I mean, we all know this. So he's going to say we're running against communists.
He said it.
And
He
so
said it in his speech on July 4th.
well, that's right. And so, our temptation is to roll our eyes and go, oh, come on, this is the kind of stuff. Unfortunately, you have candidates who basically are on the record in the past of saying, yes, we are actually communists. We are we are Marxists. And it's like, okay, now there are people who say, well, Trump was going to say that no matter what. That doesn't mean necessarily that you need to walk into his criticism. So I am concerned about this, especially because Democrats do have a lot of really excellent candidates. They have a really
Yeah.
excellent Senate candidate in Iowa, a model. You have, people like, Andy Beshear, the governor of Kentucky, a deep red state who is a very popular Democratic governor. David Jolly is running a really interesting race,
Yeah.
former Republican
Yeah.
congressman as a Democrat down in Florida. So you have, many of these young dynamic centrists who are really making a very powerful critique of Trumpism. And yet, the sexy, bright, shiny object are these folks who, quite frankly, are going to be the subject of tens of millions of dollars of Republican Oppo research. So people may say, Frank, you and Charlie shouldn't be talking about these things that these people are saying. Trust me, every voter in every swing state is going to see tens of millions of dollars about the most extreme comments of Democratic nominees. And this is unfair, but life is unfair. And this is the way politics works. So you have to come back. What's the prime directive? Is the prime directive to beat Republicans, to stop Donald Trump, which I think this is the prime directive, or
Yeah.
is it to scratch our ideological id? People have to make that decision. Do you want
Yeah.
to win or not?
Yeah. Yeah, this so for our listeners, this comes right back to my training in the FBI, which particularly as head of counter intel, which was with the 3 Ds: detect, deter, defeat the threat. Period. And that's why we're having this discussion